Tonight's guest is a fellow Team Scotland and the UK Backyard team that I've had the pleasure of running with. Is Dr. Iain Bethune, normally known as one of the halves of the Bethunes. Welcome, Iain.
Good to be here.
Thank you for coming on. So I met you at Glasgow to Edinburgh as well when you were sweeping. I'm sure we'll get onto that as well. But we always start off with our guests. How did you first get into running?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, it kind of goes back to 2015, I think. So a little bit of a story here, which was literally a shaggy dog story. That we had this dog at the time, and one night she basically got spooked and ran when we were out for a walk, and I had to sort of chase her for about maybe a mile or so up a hill, up a road. She was basically running up the middle of this main road, like dodging cars and stuff. And in the end, we managed to catch her because two guys basically corralled their cars across the road, and three of us cornered her. But basically, I'd had to run up this road, and kind of after I got back with the dog, I was like, I basically couldn't breathe. I had like proper like sort of like kind of asthma attack thing going on. Ended up with like a chest infection. I was in bed for a week, and that was like my kind of like wake up call. This was 2015. I would have been in my mid 30s, early 30s, and kind of still believing that I was fit like I was when I was 18, and that was a bit of a wake up call for me. So at that time I was working behind a desk, commuting from Selkirk in the Borders up to Edinburgh, so like about an hour and a bit each way, and we had young kids, so like any form of exercise was just not happening, and that obviously showed. So I kind of thought, well, what can I do? And just thought, right, fine, I'll take a pair of trainers and go for a run in my lunch hour. So I literally started. I was working at Edinburgh University at the King's Buildings campus, and the perimeter loop of that campus is about a mile. So I started off with one loop, did two loops, found that there was a little group that did a 4 mile race once a month, did that for a bit, and just got hooked on it. It just started as a necessity and became something that I love to do.
Would you say that was your first ever race, or is that just a sort of informal thing?
Yeah, I don't remember which one came first. I mean, the first official running race I did the Great Edinburgh Run, which was a 10-mile run like round Holyrood Park in 2016. So that was about the year after I'd kind of started running. I suspect I'd done some of those, like it was called the KB Dash. It was like a sort of informal thing. I probably did a few of them before. And I also did in the winter of 2015, there was a like trail duathlon, so like mountain biking and trail running series that they did in the local kind of country estate. And I did those over the winter of 2015 as well. But yeah, that Great Edinburgh Run was like the first time I did a proper turn up at the race, get your bib number, all that kind of jazz. So that was like maybe April, May 2016.
So when you done that race, was it from there on you thought, I'm a runner now? Like, how long did it take before Strava, the Garmin's, trainers? How long was it before you started buying things running related rather than just going out on a lunch break?
Yeah, I mean, the whole kind of, I guess the obsession kind of grows. I mean, I remember quite early on, even when I was just doing my runs around the campus, having a little spreadsheet that I recorded my time on. But I think I was just like recording my time. In fact, this probably dates it. I think I was recording my time on an iPod rather than on a mobile phone. And so that was kind of how it was then. But I think maybe a year or so after that, I did get a watch, a GPS watch, for my birthday. But for a long time I was still running in just like a cheapo pair of they were like tennis shoes, that not running kit, and cotton socks and like gym shorts and all the stuff that nowadays like how to get into running article will tell you, like, don't do all this. You need all the proper fabrics, proper shoes, I just kind of threw myself in and figured out as I went along, I guess.
So you went from there, from getting your first GPS watch. You've done a fair few races since then. Have you got a favourite one, and why?
Yeah, that's a hard question. Like, can I have a couple, maybe?
Of course,
but for different reasons, right?
Just to keep the race directors happy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for so there's lots of different aspects of races that make you think, oh, that was a great one. I really remember that one really well. I mean, I think one of the ones that's always got like a kind of special place in my heart is Gobu, so the God's Own Backyard Ultra in Leeds. And obviously, this is much further on in my running sort of history from 2016. I think I first went there in 2022. There's something. I mean, you know, the kind of backyards have a particularly tight knit community. Well, I would say that was one of those ones where really the people I met there like kind of became my friends in a way. Like there's loads of people from that race that I met the first time at that race that I still see at loads of events, not necessarily backyards. So I would say that one from like a kind of like community aspect, and just I'm going back again this year for the third time. I don't often go back to races. Sometimes I'll go back to races if I feel like I've got a point to prove, or like I underperformed and I've got unfinished business. But quite often I'll just do a race and never go back to it. So that one I'll be going back to for the third time. So that would be one of them. Then I would say in terms of like just an amazing route, was the By Way of the Glens that Bill from Rocket Events put on 2 years ago. So that was basically on the weekend that he does the Great Glen Ultra, having like a bolt-on option for if you really want to, you can start in Glasgow and do the West Highland Way first, and then join the Great Glen Way pretty much as the Great Glen Way runners start and run all the way up to Inverness. And like that was just a phenomenal kind of like journey. I mean, I really love those kind of like long distance point to point stuff, especially like seeing different parts of Scotland. I mean, I've done the West Highland Way. I hiked it back when I was a student, and I kind of knew bits and pieces of the Great Glen, but to link them all up into one run was just pretty darn epic. So yeah, so I'd say that's my number two, like from a kind of like route or like kind of thing. And then I think from a kind of like what's my best race from like my own performance would be my third one, which is quite an oddball one. It's another looped course, which was Loch Ness 24. So this is like a 24-hour looped trail race, which is I did it 2 years ago. And it's it's on it's a trail. It's very rooty. It's quite hilly. It absolutely bucketed with rain for the first 12 hours. The weather was absolutely horrific. But somehow, and it was actually like it was quite a good race, and there was someone who was out in front, and I caught them in the second half of the race. Ended up winning it by like 3 whole laps of like 12 miles, and set my 100-mile PB. So I did it in 100 miles in like 19.25 hours. So that one was like, and it just like came from nowhere, like as a performance. Like I was obviously in good shape, but I don't think I kind of knew I was. So like, I think, oh, when did I do a race where I did really well, and I was really pleased with my like performance? That one would have to be it. So yeah, I know you wanted one, but you got 3.
No, that's
was Loch Ness 24 just one of those races where just everything went right with fueling, performance, just the perfect race, you would say?
I mean, it certainly wasn't perfect. I mean, obviously, like as I said, the weather was pretty horrific, and the conditions underfoot and stuff were pretty grim at times. And as is kind of normal for me on most races, I was ended up throwing up at some points as well. And that. So I think, I mean, there's probably, if I went back, there's definitely things I could improve on. Whether I could, beat that time again. I have no idea, and I probably won't go back because I maybe don't want to spoil it, by trying to beat it. So they've actually that event was kind of on a pause this year. So I don't know if they will bring it back next year or not, but maybe it's hopefully it'll come back. It is a good fun event actually.
Yeah, by the way, the Great Glen race, that's one that I've always been tempted by, but it just never seems to fit right in the calendar. It's for that length of race, you want you have to have recovery afterwards as well.
Yeah, I mean the Great Glen Ultra, I think it's about 75 miles or something like that.
73.
Or there's like the half one. Yeah. So it's a chunky distance, obviously, and it's there's a good amount of climbing and stuff in it as well. But yeah, I mean that's always a problem, right? There's always more races than or either you don't have the time to recover and because I kind of like to go into a race feeling like I've been well prepared and given it a good shot. I mean, that's not to say I haven't done a few races stupidly close together and just kind of dragged myself around them. But yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done the West Highland Way race, Iain?
No, I've never done any of the race, the challenge, the fling, the devil. I haven't ever done any of those. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have, and most people seem to really love it. I mean, for me, I know the West Highland Way race is obviously it's a massive race. I think it's 300 people or something like that. So I don't know. I'm. It's not like a massive bucket list thing for me to do. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I will one day, but I've got lots of other things I want to tick off first. And I guess having done West Highland Way and then the Great Glen Way in a oneer, then that's those two ticked off the list.
That's huge.
And a different type of race is a race that I know you from, or a style of race that I know you from is backyard ultras.
Yeah.
When did you start running them?
Yeah, so the first backyard I did was relatively recently. It was 2022 Cowshed Backyard Ultra, so Easter time, 3 years ago, pretty much. And since then, I have done a total of 7 backyards, including Rasselbock last weekend. So, yeah.
Cowshed, that would have been the first time that we ran together.
I think so, yeah, because you were on. So it was the year when they did the Four Nations Championship. It's 4 races in the year, and so the Scottish team was there. I mean, I had no idea really who any of you guys were. I don't think, or really. I mean, I was aware of backyards as a thing, and I'd wanted to get into them for a while because they sounded kind of interesting. And I think I'm trying to think. So I mean, I know Orkney Backyard was one of the very early ones in Scotland. Obviously, Suffolk had been going for a bit, and the Northern Irish one had been going for a bit. And there was a male, somebody, I think it was maybe Sammy or Bill, maybe had been talking about putting the Highlander on for a while. And I was I'd put my name in the sort of interested parties for that, but it had never come about, until I guess maybe it ran that year. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I'd been sniffing around at backyards for a while, but eventually, and I guess with COVID and stuff, it was all a bit of a funny time. But yeah, Cowshed 2022 was the first one that I did.
So 2022, that's pretty recent for getting into backyard ultras and doing 7 in total. That feels like quite a short space of time for squeezing as much in. What is it about the format that is appealing to you?
I mean, when I started, the thing that got me into it was the idea, okay, it's a way to find your personal limit because there's no end to the race, right? So, and that's something that definitely appeals to me in ultra running generally, finding out what can I do, and the backyard is kind of quite a sort of pure format for doing that. And I've said this to people, it hooks you in as a format because no matter what happens in the race, so for everyone else apart from the winner that DNFs, you've always got a little kind of itch to scratch. What did I do wrong? How could I improve? And then if you're lucky enough to be the winner, then you've still got an itch to scratch because you could have gone further. You had to stop because someone else stopped. So it's kind of it's addictive. I mean, in a good way, right? But I don't want to stop doing them. But if you did, you'd be like, oh man, like I'm leaving unfinished business here. So I guess yeah. I mean, the cowshed. So that was my first one. I kind of didn't really know what I was doing. Obviously I'd done quite a few ultras by that point, but I'd never done a backyard. So like did all the kind of rookie backyard mistakes of going too fast. And then like as I started to slow down a bit, going, oh my goodness, it's horrific. I'm coming in at 55 minutes. And then I think I actually quit when I was like in at like 55, 56 minutes, something like that. Which now I'd be like, well, that's fine. You probably got another 8 hours in you, sort of thing. So I think I did 27 laps at that one, and then yeah, so that was in the spring of 2022, and then I went to my first Godzone backyard in November 2022, and kind of obviously it seemed to have learned quite a lot from the cowshed one because I actually managed to win that one, and did 37 yards there, which up until this last weekend was my PB. And I hadn't beaten that. That was my second backyard, and at the end of 2022.
You just said that you won that one, and you've won other ones that we know about without giving any spoilers for what we're just about to talk about. Product placement. Yep. I've got a Rasselbock t-shirt on. How many others have you won?
Okay, so prior to Rasselbock, so the 6 backyards I'd done up to Rasselbock, I'd won 2 of them, and so I won that first Godzone backyard. I won the Pig on the Hill last year, which is the one that got me the silver ticket to get on the UK team, and then at Godzone in 2023, me and Julie went there and we double DNF'd as the last 2 runners. So we decided not to go against each other for the win.
And so do you want to explain, maybe even to Nikki, but the listeners, why was it a double DNF? What's the rule that causes that?
Yeah, so in a backyard, for someone to be the winner, one person has to complete one more lap than everyone else. So it got down to me and Julie were the last 2 runners in at Godzone. And at some point around the loop, we had a bit of a chat and decided that we didn't want to race each other for the win. So we got back into the corral at the end of, I think it was 31 yards from memory, maybe 32, can't remember. And we just said to them, we're done, we're not going back out. And so therefore, because both of us finished on the same total, there's no winner. And so that was I think the 1 year they had no winner in that event.
So there was no winner at all. Like you both didn't get like, oh, it's a draw, it's a trophy. It's just that's it. Nope. No one finishes.
So there's no winner. They give you a little DNF memento. It's like so I've got one winner's mug from 2022, and both of us have DNF mugs from 2023.
Oh wow, Iain, you've got a strong marriage.
It was funny one because we kind of thought, well, actually, we'd work together the whole time. Like we'd literally run the whole race like side by side, and we'd had a great time. And it was, we obviously could have gone on further, but we kind of decided that actually, if we were running together as a pair, what happens in a backyard when everyone else has stopped? You have to stop. So that was kind of like the sort of thought process that if we were running it as a team of 2. We'd do the same and stop. So I mean, it'd be different, right, if there had been a silver ticket involved or something like that. But it was just a normal backyard race. We'd had a whale of a time, and we were more than happy just to call it a day.
So just out of my own interest for the backyard side, just going slightly off piste, with the world champs and the Belgian team, the 3 of them finished at the one. So was that a treble DNF in the world champs?
Yep. Yes. So for bigs this year, there's no Belgian winner qualified for bigs, but of course the 3 guys that set the new world record, they're all qualifying off the at-large list. So,
that's amazing. So back to you, Iain, on Rasselbock this year. When I looked at the start list, I had a couple of friends that I was following, and I was quite surprised, like when I seen you and Julie on it, just hearing about you from the World Champs, and I was quite excited to add you to my favourites list. Can you talk us through when did you sign up, and just talk about the experience from your perspective?
Yeah. So I don't remember when we signed up, probably late on last year, I guess. So certainly, I mean, normally I kind of try and plan out roughly what I'm doing events-wise in the year towards the end of the last one. And I think definitely, I mean, Julie wanted to come back in it, so she ran it last year. She went down and did it like solo, uncrewed. I was at home with the kids, and she had, I think she came fourth. If I remember correctly, it would be Mike, Sarah, Keith, and then Julie, maybe.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. I think she felt she had unfinished business. She felt she could do better. Since she had a PB of 48 from the UK Championship race, I think she had her eye on going further at Rasselbock. And everyone I spoke to that's been there said it's a great event. And I definitely had, like, personally speaking, a sort of point to prove myself from the team championships. So I kind of felt like, I did 37 yards there in October at Thetford. Very definitely, it was like a mental stroke sleep deprivation quitting. The next morning, like physically, I felt fine, legs felt fine. So I definitely knew I had more in the tank if I could manage myself properly. So I was kind of like, that's fine. I'm going to go and go back, do a solid training block over Christmas, work on a few things about how I manage my sleep and things. So, for example, I did a 12-hour like backyard simulation run from my house at this end of January, beginning of February, to practice like some sleep strategies that, because that had totally like failed me and blown up in my face at Thetford. So yeah, I definitely, for me, Rasselbock, and it's it's not a totally pancake flat course, but it's a very runnable course, and it's definitely conducive to the long distances. And obviously, it gets a good crowd at it as well, with lots of other good runners. So definitely felt as a chance to push my PB, which was kind of, me and Julie have a good friendly competition, I would say. She had 48 yards posted from the team championships. I'd been stuck on 37 as my PB since the GOBU 2022, and I kind of always thought, especially after the team championships, I thought I had a good, much longer total than that in myself, and wanted a chance to get it out. So that's what, for me, going to Rasselbock was about. It was there were loads of people there, lots of friends that we'd made from other races, lots of other people from who'd been on the UK team. So we kind of had a little bit of chat before, going like, there's various people who want to go along. That's good. We can all kind of keep an eye on each other, check in on people, and not necessarily work together, but just have people around you that are going the same sort of distance and support each other a bit. So that was kind of the aim going in.
And did it work out? Did it, when you first started, were you running with people?
So one of the things, me and Julie had decided was that actually we weren't going to run quite as closely together as we had done at previous races, especially during the first day when there's loads of other people around. We're like, okay, fine, let's just go and hang out with some other people for a change. Maybe like not use up all our chat on each other for the first day. So yeah, like for me, the first day was just like a massive kind of like party on legs. We were all just like wandering around in the woods. The sun was shining. Everybody feels good on the first day. There's loads of people that I was meeting for the first time. Some people that I'd seen before at events, and we just like, I think it was like a kind of party atmosphere. At least for me. I was feeling great. Like my legs were fine. Obviously by the time you run like sort of like 50 miles or whatever, you feel a bit, but it like wasn't getting any worse. I didn't have any major issues. like at one point, like my feet got a little bit sore. I put a bit of tape on them. You know, I was just keeping going. It was really good. I managed to get through the first night without too much in the way of sleep issues. Did a couple of fast laps, which was one of the things I'd never done before at Backyard, but had practiced. You know, coming round. So normally I try and get round in about like 52, 53 minutes. But a couple of times during the first night, I got round in like 41, 42, and then got like, 15 plus minutes of solid sleep. And that worked really well. And then I think when it got to the second night, I was kind of like, the second night for me was like what I thought was going to be the sort of crux of the event, especially as that was where I'd fallen apart at the team champs in October. But actually, weirdly enough, the second night was like easier than the first night. And I distinctly remember this like really weird feeling of like there's a bit. Mike will remember this on Rasselbock. There's a bit that goes kind of through the woods. It's like a little traily section through the trees. Most of it's on kind of like forest roads or like fire tracks. And there's a little traily section. I remember there like going through that on the second night and like everything being in sort of like heightened focus. It was like I had like HD vision. It was really like I was really just like, I don't know if it was like massive adrenaline rush or what it was, but that second night, by that point I was kind of on my own, because so Julia dropped out at the end of the second day, or the beginning of the second night, about 33 yards I think. So I was on my own by that point, and it didn't like slow me down at all. I was just like flying through that second night, really.
So you're saying about the first night and the second night, when you first start on a backyard, is it easier? What I'm trying to say is, when you start, you've got a lot of people starting in the corral, and then obviously people drop off. So although you're tired as it goes on, does it make it easier that there's not as many people?
Yeah, I think it's different for different people. If you like, running with other folks, then for sure having the people around you can help. And I mean, I did enjoy that on the first day, just chatting with people. It just makes time pass, and that's all good. But for me, I think because I'm quite like kind of competitive, as the numbers start to thin out and you know you're getting towards the sharp end of the race. And I think that's kind of partly why I was kind of buzzing in the second night, because people were starting to drop. I was like, yeah, this is getting real. I'm doing well here, So it sounds a little bit kind of cruel, but like as other people are dropping out, you're like, it's sort of drip feeding into you that you're doing well. And that gave me like a real boost, I would say.
Brilliant. And then when Julie dropped out at the end of the second day, how was that for you mentally? I would imagine when you were socialising at the start with different people, and then as the event goes on, then you come together, you have a chat about whatever you're chatting about, and then that's you're out on your own. How was that psychologically for you? Did that benefit, or how was it?
So I think actually the harder bit of it for me was like in the second afternoon, where she was really having a hard time and kind of like, really struggling. And I mean, she won't mind me saying this because this is how it was. In actual fact, the thing that basically torpedoed her race was that her period came on like during the race, and it just like, it's a mental, physical, whole body like crash basically. And she really struggled during the whole second afternoon. I was kind of trying to help her a bit, and it turned out, I wasn't helping. So she actually asked me, go off and run on your own for a bit. And she ran with some other folks, and she pulled herself out of the hole for a couple of hours. But then, by the time it got to night, and she loves night running, so I was kind of hoping that would pick her up, but it really didn't. And at that point, she's like, no, okay, and then stop trying to force my body to do something it doesn't want to do. And so the lap that she dropped out, I was ahead of her on the loop. And she turned back and went back to the start. So I didn't know that she dropped until I got to the end. And I saw that she was sitting in the marquee. So that was like the first time I knew that she was out of the race. So obviously I was like, a bit worried and, worried that she'd be really upset about it. But by the time I got there, she was totally cool about it. She was really happy with the decision she'd made. And then she'd also like flicked the switch. She was now in crew mode. I mean, she'd run for 33 hours, and the first thing she wanted to do was crew me. So like that was actually like a massive that she was happy with the decision, and then I had somebody in my corner because we'd been kind of self-crewing each other for the first day and a half. To have then go, actually, I can, rather than come in the 6-7 minutes I've got a couple of minutes of faffing around, getting stuff, sorting stuff, eat a bit. Can't really shut your eyes and properly sleep because you don't want to both oversleep and miss the bell. Now I could get in within 30 seconds of crossing the line. I could be asleep with my hood over my face, and she'd wake me up with 2 minutes to go, shove some food into me, and off we go. And we just, the second night was just, as I say, it went really well. And part of that was because, I had crew and she was supporting me.
The dynamic with yourself and Julie, it's one that fascinates me, and I'm sure it does fascinate other listeners that are into the scene. Just out of curiosity, did you both start running out with backyards? I mean, were you both runners? Did Julie start with you, or did Julie always run?
No. So she kind of came into after I did it. As I said, so I started in about 2015, 2016. I'm trying. So, I mean, obviously she's seen me running and, was kind of interested in it because I'd been doing it. But then she very much had plans of her own. She wanted to do a marathon. So I think it was maybe 2019, we ran the Edinburgh Marathon. That was kind of her first big race goal. She'd done a few halves and stuff before that. She did that, then basically didn't run again for like a year. And then she only started ultra running. So I think it was 2020. She ran an ultra on her birthday, like not an event, but just ran an ultra distance on her birthday in 2020. And I kind of took a day off work and ran around with her for almost all of it. Then I had to cut it short because the kids were coming home from school. And because I remember getting back, meeting the kids, and then we all got on bikes and went out to see her finish her ultra. So yeah, so she came into it a little bit later than I did, but certainly in terms of the super long distance stuff, I mean, she's done, I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 200-mile plus races. So certainly the super long stuff and in the backyard format, she got up to 48 hours ahead of me, so she's a phenomenal runner in her own right.
I just think it's brilliant that you both run and you both support each other. And I don't even know if there's any other married couples in the world that do the backyard. Maybe there are. Are you aware of anyone else that does it?
I don't know about backyard specifically, but so I mean, as you know, so we've got our own little blog where we kind of do our race reports and stuff. But we also do like I've done some like Q&As with other people. So like we did a Q&A with a couple that done the spine together, for example. So there are obviously other equally committed stroke crazy people out there that do some of these events. But yeah, I mean, we love running together, absolutely. One of the things I think we've learned over the last few, particularly backyards, is our styles are a bit different, and it doesn't necessarily help us both get the best out of our own races when we're racing together. And when Julie said this, so when I dropped before she did at the UK Champs at Thetford, and she said after I dropped, she suddenly felt much better because she's it's in her character to be supportive, and she at Thetford she absolutely was carrying me for a few laps because I was like completely losing my mind, didn't know what I was doing, and she was just like, she'd tell me to run, I'd run, she'd tell me to walk, I'd walk, she'd tell me to turn left, I'd turn left, sort of thing. And once I had actually dropped, she got a big boost because she didn't have to do the mental workload for 2 people anymore. So I think we've kind of learned from I think we've done maybe 4 backyards together now, and I think in future, I mean, if we're both on like the Scottish team or the UK team, that's fine, and I think that'll be okay because also there'll be other people to crew you. But I think that going together, trying to self-crew each other, it doesn't work so well, because she'll always try and support me more than looking after her own race. It's not really fair in that sense.
Yeah.
And when you didn't have Julie crewing for you, did you have a sleep strategy?
During the first day and a half of Rasselbock.
Or in any other races, when you're running with Julie normally, or if you're both in the same race, what's your kind of strategy for sleep?
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically that the two of us aren't going to fall asleep on the same lap. So there's always going to be, if one of us needs to sleep, the other one's going to wake you up. I mean, the other thing I did practice on that 12-hour backyard practice I did was I proved to myself that I can wake myself up with my wristwatch as well. So I've got that as a fallback, set to go off 2 minutes to the hour. So, because I have to say, if you're in the marquee at Rasselbock, I mean, you can hear the whistles, but they're not going to wake you up.
Yeah. And I think you said something, or you said that Julie was, you were going a bit stir crazy because you'd been up for too long, and she carried you. I can't remember if it was in Rasselbock, but
I know I was at Thetford, yeah.
Yeah. Have you had hallucinations or just going a bit crazy?
So at Rasselbock, no. Rasselbock, the sleep management, I think because I had a couple of decent sleeps in the first night, it was all good. And the second night, I was, firstly wired on adrenaline, and then eventually went to caffeine for the last few hours of darkness. At Thetford, I was totally sleep deprived. I was losing my mind. I was seeing all kinds of stuff. There was like one bit where I was like, "Well, we can't go down here," and she was like, "Why not?" I was like, because there's this big ornamental rockery with like a water feature and like all these kind of like colorful stones in the middle of the path. And she's like, "No, it's not there. It's not there." And I was seeing like, I kept seeing like, like those kind of like barrier gates you get at the entrance to the forest to stop people coming in. I was like seeing them across all the fire tracks and stuff, and like they just stuff that totally was not there. So Thetford, I totally lost my mind. And I've definitely had like big hallucinations on on that by way of the Glen, which was 2 whole nighs. Again, staying awake. I absolutely saw all kinds of crazy stuff. But at Rasselbock, not at all. It was all good.
And
you mentioned. Sorry, Mike, can you go?
I'm going to butt in here. Something that you've told me before is you struggle to eat during the night. Have you gotten past that, or have you got a strategy for that?
No, I've kind of just learned to manage it. I mean, I think it comes from, I think my body just works like it follows its circadian rhythm, and that's how I try and feed myself at a backyard. So I'll try and have something more substantial round about breakfast time, round about lunchtime, round about dinner time, and snack in between. But then, when it gets to about various 8, 9, 10 o'clock, my body starts going, now is not the time to be eating. And if I keep shoveling solids in there, I just start throwing up. And I've kind of learned there's not too much I can do about that. So basically, both nights at Rasselbock, once it gets dark and I don't feel like eating, I just switch to gels and an energy drink, and that gets me through the night. I mean, I suspect it's a slight calorie deficit. I'm going through like 1 or 2 gels per lap. In the later laps, I was doing a caffeine gel at the beginning of the lap. Halfway around, I was eating a bar of like the KMC Kindle Mint Cake. To get a kind of sugar boost halfway around. So I think probably I'll be slightly in calorie deficit, but it's fine because it gets you through 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever it is for the night. And then when it comes to morning, my stomach like just goes ravenous. It's like, right, it's morning. Where's the food? Where's the bacon rolls? Feed me. And you just start the process again. So I think I've just learned not to fight it and manage it that way.
What I was going to ask was, you mentioned when you first started running in the lunch hour, you kept a spreadsheet of your times. Have you got spreadsheets for your ultras, or do you even make notes of laps at events so that you can keep up with what you've had?
I would say I'm not like so some people like preparing for backyards are like total mega spreadsheet geeks, right? And they'll have literally like on this lap I'm going to take in 40 grams of carbs and it's going to be this food. And I don't do that. I very much go by feel, and I kind of know. I'd like to think I've kind of done enough ultras and done just about enough backyards. I kind of know what's about the right amount to have, and if I'm getting hungry, then I'll eat more. If I'm not, then that's fine. I mean, I do like kind of geeking out over my stats. My Strava, looking at all my splits, seeing which laps I was fast, which laps I was slow. I've got a few screens set up on my Garmin that tell me exactly what I want to know while I'm doing the backyard and things to manage my pace. But yeah, I'm not. So I'm probably more obsessive than most, but I'm very far from the extreme spreadsheet ultra geek.
And this
I'll
is
happily admit I'm the spreadsheet ultra geek.
It's just what works for different people, right?
It totally is.
And I think for me, especially on a backyard, like in ultras generally, I think it's good to have a plan, but the plan needs to be adaptable. And if the plan becomes too rigid, it becomes a thing that stresses you out. And when you get stressed out, you don't perform well. So, if I'm running like a point-to-point race, I'll have an idea of roughly what pace I want to be doing here, roughly what time I expect to be at this checkpoint, that kind of thing. But without it being planned out to the grams of carbs per hour kind of level of detail.
Not having ran a backyard myself yet, and I'm sure I'll be doing one in the future if Mike has anything to do with it. This is actually a question for both of you. When you complete a loop, or a yard as we call it, what do you do with the watches? Do you reset the lap or like do a new lap, or do you just leave the watch alone and just leave it continuous? I'll leave it to you. Who wants to answer that first?
I'll tell you what I do, and then Mike can. So I've got a Garmin. If you set Garmin in ultra run mode, then what you can do is when you hit the lap button, it goes into rest mode. So it's still showing you the timer, but it's in a rest mode rather than a run mode. And then I also have it set on auto lap of 1 mile. So that's the way I keep track of my pace. So in Rasselbock, the course it's undulating, but there's no massive climbs. So I was keeping a 13-minute mile pace, per each mile on my watch, and I just keep track in my head. If I was slow on the first one, I know I'm 30 seconds over, so I need to pick up the pace a bit. So I manage it that way, and usually it means I end up coming in within about a minute of my target time. And then, I lap the watch when I cross the finish line. You can still see the timer on it, so you know when it's 57, 58, 59 minutes. And then when you cross the line again, you hit lap again, and off it goes. It resets to the start. So you're getting the same mile markers called out at the same point of the lap, which I think is a disadvantage. Some people just leave their watch running, then because it's a 4.16 mile loop, your mile markers are going to be staggered.
Okay, that's good advice, Mike. What do you do?
That's for me.
Yeah, I know some people, they actually create new Strava activities per lap.
Yep.
So that they're recording it, but too much hassle for me. I press go at the start and end when the race ends, and I go by the hour. You've got the hour, so for my pacing, I know that I need to be at a certain point. For in the first lap, I'll say, okay, this point here, this tree makes 1 mile, this fence post makes 2 miles, and I'll just say to myself, right, I need to be at that tree in 10 minutes. I need to be at that fence post in 20 minutes, and that's how I do it. Keep it simple.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Requires too much memory for me. I rely on the watch because I think I'll be like, is it this tree? By the time I'm sort of losing it.
Well, see, I think exactly the same thing about your one, because I'll forget to press the button when I cross the finish line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's whoever works.
I did do that once, but then at least you remember, and you're like, oh, hang on, I'm in the corral, and the watch is still running. Quickly lap it, quickly start it, and you're kind of off again. So,
see, I like
yeah,
Ian's way. I definitely.
Everybody's is different.
I think I prefer Ian's way, because if I do it Mike's way, if I ever get to a point where I run so far in a backyard and surprise myself, that tree will probably turn into a person during a hallucination for myself.
Well,
probably.
like in the Highlander, it's for me. It was I need to be at the top of the hill at the halfway time wise. If I know I can be there, I can be at the bottom in enough time to finish. It was as simple as that. I had one marker. I just needed to be there. So the next thing I was going to ask you, Laz has got a famous saying: "It's easy till it's not." Did Rasselbock get not easy?
No, it never did. So I know you're telling me not to spoiler it. So
no,
if you want to,
on you go. I was earlier. You can spoil it now.
Talk the result. So yeah, I mean, just throw it all out there. So I won the race. I did 51 yards, right? And I absolutely felt at the end like I was still. So basically, like as I said, when you get to about mile 50, things hurt a little bit, right? Your legs feel like they've worked a bit. I mean, maybe some people that do really high volume don't. I mean, but for me, like, by the first afternoon, everything was a bit worked, but nothing ever really got worse. And it was the same by the end. I'd slept well on the first night. I slept okay on the second night. I was kind of buzzing. I got to it'd be 1 o'clock on the Monday that we finished, and I felt like I could have done another 10, 20, 30 yards. Like I literally felt like my legs felt 3-4 hours into the race. So yeah, I mean, like that Loch Ness 24 race I was talking about, sometimes like a race just comes out of nowhere where you just feel great. And I would have said like my preparation for Rasselbock was pretty good. Like I wouldn't have said I was in the form of my life, but like 90 to 95% of the way there, sort of thing, and everything just clicked. I mean, obviously, all bets are off once you probably get into the third night and things get a bit crazy, and the wheels can fall off very, very quickly. But for me, I mean, there was a couple laps that said that I did quickly, but the rest of it, I was just hitting the same pace markers again and again and again. I wasn't getting bored. I wasn't getting sore. It wasn't getting hard. I was just really, really enjoying it, which is like certainly. I think I probably had that experience like once before at a backyard as well, and it's just you just like ride it while you can, and hope there's some other people that want to go with you and see how far you can go.
I don't know if maybe it's Rasselbock that's got the sort of aura about it, but that's exactly how I felt the year before. It seemed like a perfect race to me.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice course. Like it's got a good variety of terrain. It's undulating, but it's not steep. Things give your feet a break. Some soft forest floory bits. It's not all just hard fire track. And the camp vibe was just great. There was a lot of people. Because one of the things that kind of naturally happens in a backyard, obviously, if people DNF, is that the campsite empties out. And I mean, I've experienced this, like at Pig on the Hill, for example. When I finished it, even the race organizer had gone home. So like, it can be like a bit of an anticlimax at the end. But at Rasselbock, like people had come back on the Monday to see the end of the race, which was really cool. So yeah, it was a really nice end to it. And but yeah, who knows? But I definitely felt great, and even now, like a week on, so went out and I went for a walk yesterday, went for my first run back today, and just feeling great. So.
And the trophy's absolutely beautiful as well. Have you found a nice place in the house for it?
Yes. So it's sitting in the hall at the moment. It's fantastic trophy actually. We saw it on. So we came down on the Friday night for Rasselbock, and they order, we can pre-order pizzas, and they do a Domino's run. So we all had pizza in the marquee on Friday night, and the trophy was out there. I was like, I want it. And then, by Monday I was able to get my hands on it, which is very cool.
And how has your week been, like, right after you traveled? Did you travel back on the Monday?
No, so we came down in the van, and we'd slept on site in the van on Friday night. Monday, because we kind of finished midday. It's that funny thing. You feel like you can run forever, and then as soon as you stop, everything just seizes up. So I was basically like sitting in a chair, very slowly getting myself dressed while Julie was packing everything up around me. But we stayed in like a Premier Inn just down the road. Like slept like we were dead for like 12 hours. Did a pretty good effort of trying to take them for the all-you-can-eat breakfast, and then we got on the road and drove back home on Tuesday. And then I think we'd both booked off 3 days from work, so we didn't have to work on Wednesday either. So like Wednesday, we could pretty much unpack everything, do all the laundry, and then sort of stagger around like zombies. And then we were both back at work on Thursday.
Back to the family life and the bubble busts.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, this is one of the other things that's I think quite nice about, we probably manage 1 or 2 races a year where we get to both go away. And this weekend, my mum and dad came up and look after the kids from Friday until Tuesday as well. So we don't have anything to worry about from that. I mean, sometimes when we crew each other, we'll have the kids in tow as well. But this one we're able to just get away by ourselves, which is great.
So you mentioned that you feel that you're feeling during Rasselbock. How would you feel for different events? For instance, when you done the West Highland Way Great Glen one, how did that one work out for fueling?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the kind of stuff I'd eat, it's fairly similar. So I try and eat as much as possible of real foods while I'm during the day. I mean, if backyards for me is kind of easy. I don't tend to carry food on the lap, so I'll just sit and eat something in the 5 minutes, and then let it digest once I go around. I mean, sometimes if it's really hot, I'll take a flask of like juice around with me. So generally, what I use is the KMC NRG, as it's called, which is the Kendall Mint Cake company's thing, which is like mint and lime or mint and raspberry. That seems to work for me. If I'm doing long point-to-point stuff, it's just generally more stuff you can stuff in a race vest. So like bags of nuts, dried fruit, sometimes kind of crisps and stuff like that, and then just restock it at checkpoints. And then again, in the night, having a stash of gels with me. So like on that, by way of the Glens, the night section was pretty much from Brayfart car park in Glen Nevis through till somewhere around like it's about Lagan, sort of like the kind of first loch section on the Great Glen, and that was just like cruise through the night, slurping gels. And I remember Julie met me with a bacon sausage sandwich in the morning, which is breakfast time to start eating again.
That's a perfect crew member.
Oh yes.
And what about on a sort of day-to-day basis when you're not running? What kind of diet do you follow?
Yeah, it's an interesting question actually, because so since the start of this year, I've switched onto a low GI diet. So it's not quite as extreme as like a keto diet, but it's basically what somebody who's a type 2 diabetic would have. So basically, you're cutting out sort of refined carbs, so like sugar, white bread, white pasta, potatoes, and so basically stuff that will quickly metabolize into glucose. So the idea of it is that you basically don't get big spikes followed by big troughs in your blood glucose, because certainly that I mean for me, I like to eat and I habitually tend to put on weight if I don't watch it. And actually, since the start of the year, I've probably lost about 5 kilos, just being on that diet. Because I think basically when your blood glucose is high, my body says, "Great, let's store fat," and it crashes and go, "Oh, I'm hungry. I need to eat sugary stuff again," and you go through that cycle. And now, I don't get me wrong, like the first week is really, really hard, and you do get like the keto headache kind of thing, and you feel really rough for a few days. But then after that, your body adapts quite quickly. And now, like, if I need to snack, I'll have like nuts and cheese cubes or something rather than like chocolate and sweets. And not having substituting whole grain for like white bread and stuff like that is not very difficult. Even when you've got family and stuff as well, it's not like you're having to cook separate meals. It's quite easy to adapt. So yeah, that's really the only thing. I mean, apart from that, I just try to eat a healthy kind of balanced diet. But that's really, really worked for me in the last couple of months. And I definitely recommend it. But I mean, aside from that, I'm omnivorous. I've talked about bacon sandwiches, and pork pies are another go-to for me as well. I know there's a lot of my friends are vegans as well, so
so you like to wind them up.
That's fine, but it's not for me.
It's definitely something I might look into, because sugar, pasta, and white bread is my staples.
It's a funny one, because like the traditional wisdom from like endurance sports nutrition, I mean, I guess it mainly comes from like sort of 10Ks and marathon training and stuff like that. It's like carb load.
Yeah.
Get your gels into you, lots of carbs. That's what your body needs. But where I actually got the idea from, Christopher McDougall did the Born to Run book about all the barefoot running, maybe 10 years ago or something. So he brought out another book a year ago, just called Born to Run 2, not very original. But it kind of talks more about like the diets and stuff of the Copper Canyon Indians, how like when him and the other guys went down there and were running huge distances with him, they were all stacking pancakes and porridge and stuff. Whereas those guys would in the morning they'd have like meat and broth and kind of very like fat heavy stuff, and that was how their metabolism works. So that was kind of where I got the idea to try the low GI diet from. And as I say, it certainly helped me lose some weight. And I hadn't, apart from that first week where you feel a bit rough, I don't think it affected like my energy levels for training or anything like that.
Going back, we seem to have gotten off topic. Rasselbock, Julie dropped out. She crewed for you, and then all hell broke loose, or it didn't. You kept calm. You kept on going. What happened?
Yeah, so let's get back on the story from this massive little
That's all right.
Sidetrack we went down.
We don't mind.
Yeah. I mean, so basically what happened was, so by the end of the second night at Rasselbock, we were down to 2, and I think it was maybe 8 yards, something like that. There was myself and Lizzie were the last 2 runners going. So we were just kind of doing our own things, and they got to some milestones I had in my head. I really wanted to get to 48, partly because that was I'd done 2 whole days, 200 miles. I'd never done 200 miles in any event before. Julie had done 200 miles, so that was a little it's a little extra motivation for me there. And then I also knew that the Scottish record that Thomas Hugon had, I could beat that at 50. So those are the kind of things that were in my mind as we went through the morning. But yeah, I was just in my little zone, banging out those laps at the same kind of pace. And really, I mean, I didn't really. Sometimes when there's like a couple of us in the down at the end of a race, I like to play a few games and stuff, but I didn't really do that until it was like loop 51. I went past Lizzie on the sort of first long downhill, and I looked back at one point and I could see she was going quite slowly. I thought she was maybe on her phone or something. I wasn't quite sure. I thought, okay, fine. What I'll do is I'll do a real fast first mile, get all the way down the first gravel road and try and be out of sight by the time she comes around the corner. And then I would slow down for the rest of the loop because, obviously I still was prepared that the race could go on for, 24 hours or more, because she wasn't showing really any signs that she was struggling, to be honest. And then when I was in the woods when I came out of the woodland sections just towards the end of mile 2, there was a marshal there, and he says, "Oh, she's dropped." He'd had a radio call from the HQ to say that she dropped and turned back. So it was literally sort of just before halfway through that lap, pretty much out of the blue. I found out that actually I was on the final lap, and just had to run it in. And I mean, Mike, you've won these races before as well. I mean, I think that it's the same at a long point to point, I guess, that a lot of for the backyard is because you don't know how long it's going to go on. You're just trying to be as efficient as possible and minimize the amount of energy you're using. So you're always holding yourself back. And then that last lap, you're like, yeah, I can run. And I literally, like, all the bits where I'd be walking normally, I was just literally ran the last 2 miles in. And I'm like, whooping and hollering and all that kind of stuff. And just like, you get this massive buzz. And obviously it's like, you come round into the corral and there's a good little crowd of people there. It was just fantastic. So that was how it happened.
I've found that the last lap last year, Sarah Perry had dropped, and I knew I had to complete the lap. So I'd been told before I started it, and it was probably the most stressful lap that I've done, because I had one thing to do, and that was just finish. And I was so paranoid that I was going to trip over or do something that I wouldn't finish. It was just get around there as fast as you can, but don't go too fast, because then you might not finish. So
the only thing that can possibly happen here is that I screwed up, basically.
And then it would be my own fault.
What was your time?
I mean,
Sorry, what was your time in that last lap then? In the end up?
From memory, I'm going to say it was about 44, 45 minutes, something like that. So it was like, a good 5 or 6 minutes faster than, I think somebody told me it was my third fastest lap. So I said I did 2 fast laps on the first night, so I could get some sleep. And then the rest of my laps were all in the 50, 51, 52, 53 range, except that last one that I did in 40, 45, something like that.
That's incredible. It's the consistency when you look at the actual stats and the data, as you say, on Strava, and just how consistent each lap is, and you keep going at that pace for that amount of miles. It really does blow my mind.
It was 44, 48 for the last lap.
There you go. Close enough.
And you're probably, you did 142.
I think the thing is, I think it was around about 11, so maybe about lap 13, and then maybe lap 18, 19, something like that.
20.
Like I'd one sleep just before midnight and then one just before dawn.
Yeah, it was your third fastest lap.
Yeah, but then that's it. I mean, you can burn all your matches at that point, because you don't have any, you're not having to hold back for potentially an unlimited number of laps.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I know some I think at the UK Championships when Sarah Perry won it, I don't think she finished the lap, and Alex, who was the assist, I think he got lost or he timed out or whatever. So she completed the lap thinking she had more to do, and then you have that wait for him to see if he DNF'd or not. Whereas all the 3 races I've won, I've either found out from a marshal that somebody's turned back, or like at Pig on the Hill, the guy who was the assist, Paul, he shook my hand in the corral and said, I'm not going out again. So I had the whole lap to do, but I knew that was it. So I've never had that like surprise finish, which would be an interesting one, I guess.
So having won that, would you say that that's your biggest running achievement, or what would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the numbers go, yes, probably, I mean, it's the longest I've done in terms of distance. It's the longest I've done in terms of time. I've heard different races be compared to, say, like if you're holding your hand to a flame, some races you have to hold your hand closer to the flame but for less time, and some of them you have to hold it further from the flame but for longer. I mean, that Loch Ness 24 run that I talked about, that one, in terms of really being pedal to the metal for like 24 hours, that's probably the hardest. And I mean, by the end of that race, I could barely stand. Like, I remember going out to get my my little trophy thing, it's a little plaque, and having to walk out from the crowd at the prize giving, going like, I'm making a serious effort not to like pass out and keel over here, because I literally like had burnt everything I had over 24 hours. And I think you can do that if there's a time or a distance limit. So, but yeah, I mean, but in terms of putting a mark out there, I guess probably that Rasselbock run would be my biggest achievement to date. Let's see what the future holds. But that's of course the frustrating thing, right? As I said, when you win the backyard, you always know you had at least one more lap in the tank than everyone else.
And then next time, you might not have the perfect day, so you might not be capable of it next time. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many factors that have to. The weather was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
It was like 10, 12 degrees during the day. I mean, yeah, if you really want to nitpick, you could have done with like a couple of degrees warmer at night, but it wasn't by any means unbearably cold. It hadn't rained for like a week before, so that even the traily bits were just nice and soft. They weren't like slidey, squidgy mud. You couldn't have asked for a better race weekend. So who knows? I mean, maybe I can go much longer than that. We'll just have to see what events I go to and who's there.
Yeah, well, you took my course record for Rasselbock, but you apologised.
And your course record for Pig on the Hill, Mike, just to mention it.
Yeah, what was I about to say? For both of them, backyards, I don't think that course records matter, because Sarah dropped and I knew that I was capable of a lot more. What you should be sorry for is not turning up on the last year, so we could have actually had a proper race. So as I said, the course record. I'm happy that you
can't separate people's achievements from whoever else or whatever else happened on the day. Yeah, absolutely.
So another question that we like to ask guests, Iain, is why do you run?
Yeah, you like asking hard questions, don't you? No, I guess there's kind of two things. I mean, I did say when I got into running, I mean, I've always been one of these kind of like type A competitive people, right? Whether it's competitive against others or competitive against myself, and that was from certainly when I got into running. I was always like, ooh, I can do a half marathon, or I can do a marathon distance. Ooh, these ultras. Ooh, they get longer. Oh, like how far can I go? So there's that. There's definitely a part of me that wants to explore and push what I can do, and to race and to enjoy racing against other people as well. So that's definitely a strong thing for me. Is like the competitive side, absolutely. But I think the other part, which backyards don't really do, is I really like the kind of, and so I told you how I came into running, but my kind of background growing up was more like an outdoor sports person. So like we used to do like a lot of hill walking as kids. I did whitewater kayaking. That was my first sport. So I've always some people come into running through athletics, like through track and stuff like that, whereas I very much came to it from being happy out in the hills. And so like doing these long point-to-point races for me, it's it's exploring, and like without sounding all kind of hippie about it, it's like sort of you kind of connect yourself to the place and to nature. And I mean, like one of my kind of bucket list things to do is like to try and run or walk all of the Scotland's great trails at some point. So some of them we've done as like hiking holidays as a family. Some of them I've done as races. I'm sure some of them I'll do like, a solo expedition. So, but that kind of like, connecting yourself to the place you're in, what you can do when you can run for a long distance. I remember I used to do hill walking, and like, a 10-mile day with a couple of them in rows was like a big day. And that's as far, if you're, leather boots, big backpack on, that's what you can do in a day. All of a sudden, if you've got the fitness and the abilities and, can manage yourself in that environment, you can suddenly do like 20, 30 mile big link ups and see all these fantastic places. I mean, one of the best things in the last year I did, I was in the Arrocher Alps in, I think it was October or November. Yeah, it must be November. It was after the, I think it was after the Backyard Champs. And like, I spent a day slogging through crappy, claggy, soggy ground, and then climbed up above a cloud inversion where you could literally see all these little peaks popping out all over the place, like that kind of thing. The ability to get to do that because of all this running I've done is just like a massive privilege and a fantastic thing to be able to do. So even if I couldn't race, I'd still be happy doing that.
You mentioned about the family holidays, like with the great trails. Are the kids quite enthusiastic with the outdoors as well, or is it reluctance?
Yeah, that's a delicate topic, probably. No, I like to think they will have good memories of the things that they've done. I wouldn't say it's necessarily type 1 fun for them all the time. But I mean, we've done. We did the Kintyre Way, which is a 100-miler, with them. I think it must have been summer 2021, still kind of COVID times. And that was, and it was in a heat wave in July, and we were having to like knock on people's doors and beg for water and stuff. That was pretty crazy. But this summer we're going to go and do the Arran Coast Path, which is a bit shorter. I think it takes about 4 days. But we carry our own tent and stuff, and just have a good time as a family.
And when you're out, it might relate to backyards or just out in the hills, running in general. What do you think about?
Yeah, it varies a lot. I mean, I think, and one of the things I get out of running is it's a good headspace. I would say the majority of my running I do by myself, and quite often it's time to kind of process and sort through things. I don't so much do it anymore, but when I was working in an office, I'd quite often run my lunch hour, as I said, and sometimes you'd be chewing over a problem that you hit a brick wall on, and you have that sort of flash of inspiration where you get away from your desk and get out into the fresh air. So yeah, that's definitely an element. Like and I guess you maybe experienced this, that you go on a run and all of the world's problems seem clear and obvious, and everything feels right with the world. Doesn't always last till you get back to reality, but it's a good feeling while it's lasting. But so sometimes it's like that, but sometimes it's, I would say, especially if I'm doing like a hard training run, like like intervals or like a hard tempo run or something like that, where you're like really working hard, then all of a sudden you just focus right in on what you're doing, and that's like quite a fun thing in itself. Like you're totally in the activity and just like completely focused on it, which is also cool. So it's definitely like I'd say like what's the word? Like a counterbalance to all the kind of complexity of like work and family life, and you get on the trail, things are simple. You put one foot in front of the other, you navigate, and you enjoy yourself.
Do you have a dream race on the bucket list?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like many people, well, maybe not for many people actually. The Barkley Marathons is my absolute bucket list race. I have been applying now for about probably 10 years, ever since I started running, when I had absolutely no clue about it and what it was, and was completely incapable. I'm probably only slightly less than capable of doing it now, but maybe one of these days I'll get lucky or unlucky and get in. You never know. But that would be totally.
I'm sure there's been plenty of people that have been less capable that have got in and realised that they were less capable.
Yeah, no, I mean it's massively oversubscribed. It's probably as hard to get into as the London Marathon. And
hard to find out how to apply for.
Yes, indeed. But no, I mean the idea of it, like being self-sufficient, out in the forest with very little navigational aids and stuff like that, totally appeals to my kind of sense of like exploration adventure. I like to think I'm quite a good navigator. I've actually done a couple of races. There's a race series around the UK called The Drop, where they take you like normally it's 10 or 15 miles, but they once did an ultra edition where they took you 30 miles from the finish. They blindfold you, drive you in a van, and drop you off with like no GPS, and you have to find your way back. That kind of stuff, like crazy navigation stuff, does really appeal.
And you said that we always ask hard questions. So this is actually a question that I find difficult to ask sometimes, because it could be upsetting, but is there anybody that you would love to run with? Either somebody you know, fictional, alive, not?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to kind of squirrel out of the question a little bit because I'm not. There's lots of runners I'm aware of and that I follow on Instagram and stuff like that. But I'm not really big into like having a big inspirational hero that I want to be like this person. And I'd love to run with them and just understand their take on life or anything like that. So that's not like a big thing for me. In terms of like who I would like to run with, the times I really enjoy running with somebody is when I'm taking somebody and like showing them something that they like. For example, somebody who's only ever run road, and you take them on trail for the first time, and they're like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" Or like, there's some like if somebody's come to visit and I get to take them out for like my little local run that I do all the time. That's totally boring and routine to me, but they love it. It's that like I guess it's like sharing the joy of what you do with someone else. That's so it's not a specific person, but that's the if I have to answer the question of who would I run with, it's that person that I'm taking and showing something that I've helping them share what I'm getting out of the run.
That's a great answer.
Well, I did all right then on the hard questions.
Now Rasselbock has been ticked off for 2025. Have you got anything else booked this year or in the near future?
Yes. So I have got a stupidly busy year of big races coming up, which is either going to be fantastic or at some point I'm going to crash and burn. So basically the plan is, so in May, I'm doing the Cape Wrath Ultra. So that's going to be completely different because it's a 250-mile race, but it's an 8-day stage race. So that'll be, again, that totally ticks the boxes for like amazing parts of the country to explore. So really looking forward to that. Then so that's May. I'm hoping to run the Highlander in July. I know the Scottish team hasn't been officially announced yet, but I hope I'm on it. So that would be July. Then in August, again, long distance point-to-point race. I'm doing Race Across Scotland. So that's the Southern Upland Way. So that's 215 miles continuous race, which Julie did last year. I crewed her on. Totally love that because, as I said before, I used to live in the Borders. I grew up in the Borders, so the Southern Upland Way was like my kind of childhood stomping grounds of those hills. So totally looking forward to that. I said before I'm going back to Gobu, God's Own, in October. So that'll be my third backyard of the year. And then I'll probably throw in a couple other things. I did also enter the the Ben Nevis Skyline, which is like, it's only a short race. I think it's like, I can't remember how long it is, maybe 16, 17 miles, something like that. But it's like from the Anachmore Ski Centre up Ben Nevis over the Carmel Jargaret, and then back down again. So again, that's like, I've always kind of had an idea it'd be fun to do one of these like sky running type races, see what that's like. So that's in September. So basically, if I can get between all those, I'm just going to spend the whole year doing race, recovery, and then taper for the next one. And we'll see if my legs still keep moving by October.
God's Own, is Julie crewing you, running with you, or not there at all?
I don't think we've totally finalised it. I think at the moment I'm planning to go down by myself. I don't think she's going to come for that one, but yeah, we'll see. I might see if I can rustle up a crew for that if she's not going to come.
Right, that's taking us. I guess it was a 50-hour race that we invited you on for, so it's been a bumper episode, but we're okay with that. And all I've got to say is thank you, Iain, for joining us. Thank you, Nikki, for being Nikki, and it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.